The episode Todos los porros van al cielo from the Spanish television series Aida functions as a microcosm of a society where the lines between morality, necessity, and absurdity blur until they collapse entirely. It is not only an installment of a beloved comedy series, it is also a moral labyrinth disguised as situational humor. This essay will analyze the episode through a critical lens, focusing on its satirical treatment of poverty, hypocrisy, and redemption, its cinematic language, and the broader emotional truths it extracts from everyday chaos. The narrative revolves around Luisma and his naive yet touching attempt to reconcile his past as a drug addict with a new sense of responsibility. When the local priest's sermon suggests that good people go to heaven, Luisma takes it literally and applies it to his own circle of friends and misfits, deciding that everyone who has smoked weed deserves paradise. The absurdity of this belief forms the backbone of the episode's humor, yet it also exposes the profound confusion of individuals who live without a stable moral compass because their lives have been defined by survival, not philosophy. The episode's title, Todos los porros van al cielo, becomes an existential joke, a parody of religious slogans and a reflection on the distorted spirituality of the working class in Esperanza Sur. The characters in this neighborhood do not find salvation through sermons or confessions. They seek it in laughter, in shared misery, and in fleeting moments of kindness that defy the cynicism of their environment. The first striking element of the episode is its relentless rhythm. The scenes flow without pause, creating a sense of suffocating normality, as if the audience were trapped in the same claustrophobic loop as the characters. The camera moves through the familiar settings of the bar, the apartment, and the street, capturing a choreography of despair and denial. Each character performs a role that conceals their inner pain. Mauricio, the bar owner, pretends to be a rational businessman while exploiting the workers and despising his customers. Aida, the exhausted mother, oscillates between sarcasm and compassion, unable to abandon her family, yet dreaming of an escape that never comes. Lorena and Jonathan, trapped between adolescence and disillusionment, represent the new generation of the hopeless, growing up surrounded by failure, yet still laughing about it. The humor acts as both shield and confession. It allows them to laugh at the very system that crushes them. The episode's cinematography reinforces this mood. The lighting is deceptively bright, creating a visual irony. The characters exist in a world bathed in artificial light, yet they remain morally and emotionally in the dark. This contrast between visual optimism and thematic pessimism is one of the show's most subtle achievements. The dialogue, dense with slang and double meanings, becomes a form of resistance. Every joke hides a truth too painful to say directly. When Luisma argues that porros go to heaven, it is not a defense of drugs but an unconscious plea for forgiveness. He wants to believe that even people like him, failures, addicts, and fools, have a place in the moral order of the universe. The genius of Aida lies in how it manipulates tone. What begins as a ridiculous misunderstanding turns into a social commentary without ever abandoning its comic roots. The scene where Luisma and his friends discuss the afterlife resembles a tragic-comic council of philosophers who confuse theology with street wisdom. Their debate about whether God would accept smokers, drinkers, and criminals into heaven captures the essence of the show's philosophy. The marginalized redefine morality because they no longer trust the institutions that claim to represent it. The church, the police, and the political system appear in Aida not as sources of authority but as recurring jokes, symbols of hypocrisy that the characters have learned to mock in order to survive. One of the most emotionally charged moments in the episode occurs when Aida, overwhelmed by her brother's foolishness, finally confronts him. Her outburst, half angry and half maternal, reveals the heart of the story. She scolds him not because she despises him, but because she recognizes in him the reflection of her own hopelessness. Her life has been an endless struggle to maintain dignity while everything around her collapses. Luisma's absurd ideas force her to look at her own compromises, her own small lies that allow her to endure another day. In this confrontation, the comedy momentarily dissolves, and what remains is the raw emotion of two siblings trapped by love and circumstance. From a thematic perspective, Todos los porros van al cielo explores the desperate need to assign meaning to failure. The residents of Esperanza Sur are not victims of fate, but of a social system that has normalized injustice. The show never delivers this message with melodrama. It filters it through absurdity, making it even more powerful. By turning pain into laughter, Aida transforms tragedy into a shared ritual of survival. The episode demonstrates how humor can become a political act, a way of reclaiming agency in a world that constantly humiliates you. When the characters laugh at themselves, they assert their humanity against the dehumanizing forces of poverty and inequality. Another layer of complexity comes from the way the episode manipulates the concept of heaven. Heaven here is not a religious promise, but a metaphor for escape, for rest, for a world where mistakes are forgiven. For Luisma, heaven is the dream of a place where he no longer has to apologize for being who he is. For Aida, it is the fantasy of peace after years of responsibility. For Mauricio, it is a world where profit never ends and guilt does not exist. Each character projects their desires onto the same abstract space, revealing their contradictions and humanity. The brilliance of the writing lies in allowing these conflicting interpretations to coexist without resolution. Heaven remains an unreachable horizon, simultaneously ridiculous and sacred. The episode's final sequence encapsulates its entire philosophy. After a series of comic disasters, misunderstandings, and reconciliations, Luisma sits alone, staring at the sky with a joint in his hand. The scene could easily be read as a parody of a cinematic cliché, yet it feels strangely profound. The silence that follows his laugh is not empty. It carries the weight of every unrealized dream in Esperanza Sur. The audience laughs, but the laughter has an aftertaste of melancholy. The moment echoes a universal human truth. People cling to illusions because reality offers no alternative. What distinguishes Aida from other comedies of its time is its refusal to provide catharsis. There are no grand transformations or moral victories. The characters remain flawed, the problems persist, and yet life goes on. The show's realism lies precisely in its circular structure. In Todos los porros van al cielo, no one ascends to heaven, not even metaphorically, but the mere act of imagining it, of laughing about it, gives them a form of spiritual resistance. This is the paradox at the core of the series. The lower you fall, the more laughter becomes an act of grace. Comparatively, the episode recalls elements of Italian neorealism, though filtered through Spanish television's unique sense of irony. Like the films of De Sica or Rossellini, Aida portrays ordinary people navigating a post-ideological world. Yet where neorealism sought to evoke empathy through austerity, Aida achieves it through farce. The result is a modern social satire that neither condemns nor absolves its characters, but exposes the absurd mechanisms of their existence. In doing so, it redefines what social realism means for contemporary audiences. On a personal level, watching this episode evokes a strange familiarity. The laughter it provokes is not carefree. It is the laughter of recognition, of knowing that these characters' struggles mirror our own. Everyone, in some way, seeks a small piece of heaven, a moment of peace, an illusion of forgiveness, a shared joke that makes pain bearable. The episode reminds viewers that redemption is not found in distant ideals, but in fleeting gestures of humanity. Ultimately, Todos los porros van al cielo is not about drugs or salvation. It is about survival. It portrays a community where love, guilt, and stupidity intertwine so tightly that they become indistinguishable. Its humor is a mirror held up to a society that laughs to avoid crying. In its chaos, the episode reveals the dignity of imperfection, the poetry of everyday struggle, and the fragile hope that even the lost deserve heaven, if only for a moment of laughter.